James Gregor, and I'm going to be talking about Going Dutch. I think this novel is important now because we live in a world that's increasingly digital, it's increasingly lived online, and the book really takes as one of its main subjects kind of life lived online, and through sort of online dating and social media, and the way that people sort of navigate that kind of division between online life and non-online life, if that division really still exists. The protagonist of Going Dutch is a early 30-something named Richard, and he is a kind of floundering PhD student in New York City in medieval literature. So he's someone who has kind of very obscure interests, and he's someone who kind of like feels himself somewhat of like an antique character. He's a little bit out of step with the modern world, and he meets someone in the book who shares those interests, except Richard is a gay man, and the person whom he meets and shares this interest with, and then subsequently a romantic connection, is a woman, a straight woman. So he's sort of negotiating worlds that on first glance maybe wouldn't overlap or meet in the way that they do in the novel. I mean, I think it's special because it's the first thing that you get out there, and if you've been wanting to write a novel for a long time, for your entire life, it necessarily has that sort of that meaning attached to it, that I finally did it, it's out there. But of course, obviously a lot of writers who go on to write a lot more sometimes look back on their first books and maybe they cringe, or maybe they wish they'd done it differently. So I guess it's fraught. It's definitely a fraught book for any writer, I think. Well, I think my muse refuses to work without coffee, which probably is a very typical answer, but I definitely consume a lot of coffee. It's this kind of familiar movement and this familiar presence, like on the warm mug right there beside you. I feel sort of less alone when I have my coffee beside me. So yeah, we're in it together, me and my coffee. The books on my side table right now, well, one of them is, it's a Nathaniel West collection. It's The Day of the Locust and Miss Lonely Hearts. Recently I watched the John Schlesinger version of The Day of the Locust. I was just kind of like, oh, it'll be interesting to see what carried over, and if the mood and the spirit of the book remains in the film. So yeah, that's what's on my bedside table right now. The books on my side table right now, well, one of them is, it's a Nathaniel West collection. It's The Day of the Locust and Miss Lonely Hearts, which I sort of gave that book a try a long time ago, but recently I watched the John Schlesinger version of The Day of the Locust. I was just kind of like, oh, it'll be interesting to see, what carried over, and if the mood and the spirit of the book remains in the film. So yeah, that's what's on my bedside table right now.